This daf is sponsored by Alexander Rosenfeld in memory of Shmuel Zev ben Aaron Rosenfeld. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amar or Daf, see the description box below, and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Gimel Amud Beis in Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 93b. On the previous Amud, the Gemara quoted a pasuk that Boaz gave Rus 6 barleys, and the Gemara said, does it really mean 6 grains of barley? That would be too small. And so the Gemara instead says, Elo sheish soin. Rather, what it means is, he gave her 6 saw of barley. Rashi explains, Elo sheish soin, the sheish kabin o sheish lugin, lekel. You can't say it's 6 kav or 6 lug. Delo maisi begoren mida pchusa misah. You're not going to bring from a goren. You're not going to bring from the threshing floor less than a saw. But the Gemara says, V'chi darka shel isha litol sheish soin. Is it the way of a woman to take 6 saw, which is a large amount? And the Gemara says, Ela remez ramazla. Rather, what's happening in this pasuk is, he's giving her a hint. Sha'asid and shisha banim lotzeis mimena, that there are going to be 6 sons, 6 descendants that come from her. Shemizbarchin b'sheish sheish brachos, that each one is going to have 6 brachos. V'eluhein, and the 6 are as follows: David u'Mashiach, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, v'Azariah. David, Mashiach, and Daniel, and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the Gemara says, David dichsiv, David, because it's written in the pasuk, Vayan echad me'hana'orim. This is a pasuk in Sefer Shmuel. One of the Na'arim answered, Vayomer, and said, Ra'isi, hine Ra'isi ben Yishai, beis halachmi, I see a son to Yishai, Yodea nagein v'gibor chayil v'ish milchama v'novon davar v'ish toar v'Hashem imo. So those are 6 qualities. Those are the 6 brachos that are listed in the pasuk. And the Gemara continues, V'yamar Rav Yehuda Marav, and Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Kol ha-pasuk hazel lo amru doeg. This entire pasuk, the reason why Doeg was saying all of these qualities, all of these brachos of David HaMelech, he was saying it ela b'lashon hara. He was saying it as a way of lashon hara. And Rashi explains, Yodea nagein gibor chayil v'ish milchama v'novon davar v'ish toar v'Hashem imo hainu sheish brachos. Those are the 6 brachos. And lo amran doeg l'kamon mefaresh ha'echad min ha'na'orim hainu doeg. The Gemara is going to explain later on that the na'orim, the one of the na'orim which is mentioned over here, is actually referring to doeg. That's why we're mentioning doeg here. And doeg said this ela b'lashon hara. He was saying this as lashon hara, meaning shaya misaper b'shivcho shel David. He was stating the praises of David, in order that Shaul should be jealous, and then Shaul would kill him. That's what it means that Doeg said this like lashon hara. And the Gemara explains each one of the brachos. Yodea nagein. What does it mean, Yodea nagein? It means sheyodea lishol. He knows how to ask in terms of halacha. And gibor, what does it mean? He's a gibor. Sheyodea lahashav, that he knows how to answer. And ish milchama, what does it mean? Ish milchama. Sheyodea lisa valiten b'melchamta shel Torah. He knows how to give and take in the war of Torah. And the next line of the Gemara, the Mesoras Hashas, has the same line, just in reverse. In any case, ish toar, what does it mean, ish toar? Shemare ponim b'halacha, that he displays an understanding of halacha. V'novon davar, and what does it mean, novon davar? Shemevin davar mitoch davar, he can understand one thing from another thing. V'Hashem imo, and what does it mean, Hashem imo? Shehalacha kamoso b'chol makom, that the halacha is like him in all places. And the Gemara continues, Bekulu, in all of these praises, Amar Lahu, so he said to them, meaning Shaul said, Yehonasan b'ni kamo, that Yonasan, my son, is just like David HaMelech. He can match David HaMelech in all of these qualities. But Kevan do Amar le v'Hashem imo, once he said to him that Hashem is with him, Milsa d'b'didei nami lo havabe, that's something that even Shaul HaMelech did not have. So Chalash daite, he became offended, v'iknebe, and he became jealous of David HaMelech. B'Shol ksiv, because by Shaul it's written, Uv'chol asher yifna yarshia, wherever he turned it became worse. U'v'David ksiv, and with David it's written, Uv'chol asher yifna yatzliach, everywhere where he turned it was successful. And Rashi explains, Lisa v'litein b'melchamta shel Torah, he knows how to give and take in the war of Torah. Lisvakeach b'talmud, it means in the learning, to negotiate in the learning. And ponim b'halacha means shemevi raya l'dvarav, he can bring evidence to what he's saying. And divididei nami lo have Shaul did not have that Hashem was imo, meaning to say the Shaul and Nami lo have a halacha kamo. So Shaul also, the halacha was not like him. Kedamin and be'erevin, like we say in Erevin, David, the Goli Mesechta, David, he would tell in advance what he was going to be lecturing on. Ksiv bein, it's written about him, Yerucha Yeruni v'yismachu, that those who fear you, they see me and they're happy. But when it came to Shaul, the lo Goli Mesechta, he would not say in advance what it was they were learning. Ksiv bein, it's written by him, B'chol asher yifna yarshia, everywhere where he turned, it would be worse. And again, the idea is that the halacha is not like him. And the Gemara continues, Minolon de doeg hava. How do we know that the echad hanaorim that was referred to is doeg? Because ksiv hacha, because it's written over here, the pasuk we quoted above, vayan echad me hanaorim. It says again, one of the young men, miyuchad shabinaorim. It means the distinguished among the naorim. Uksiv hasam, and it's written over there, v'sham ish me'avdei Shaul bayomahu. There was a man there from the servants of Shaul on that day, netzar lifnei Hashem, detained before Hashem, ushmo doeg ha'adomi, and his name was doeg ha'adomi. Avir haroim asher l'Shaul. He was the chief herdsman among Shaul, so you see that he was miyuchad, he was distinguished among the servants of Shaul. That's how we know that this echad mehanaorim is referring to doeg. And the Gemara continues, Mashiach, when it comes to Mashiach as well, the Pasuk mentions 6 brachos, tichsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, V'nocha olav ruach Hashem, the Spirit of Hashem will rest upon him, ruach chochma uvina, there'll be a spirit of wisdom and understanding, ruach eitzo gvura, a spirit of counsel and might, ruach das, a spirit of knowledge, v'yiras Hashem, and a fear of Hashem. Uchsiv, and it's also written in the Pasuk, V'haricho, v'yiras Hashem, he will delight in yiras Hashem. Both of these psukim come from Sefer Yeshayahu. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reb Alexandri says, Milamid, this pasuk teaches by using the word v'haricho. The pasuk teaches sheitino mitzvahs v'yisurin kerechayim, that he loaded him, meaning to say the Mashiach was loaded up with mitzvahs and afflictions like a millstone. And the Gemara continues, Rava Amar Rava says a different thing is learned from the pasuk from the word v'haricho. Demorach v'doin. What it means is that by smelling he's able to judge. T'chsiv, as it's written in the pasuk, v'lo lamari einav yishbot. He doesn't judge by what he sees with his eyes. He's able to just smell, so to speak, what the proper judgment should be. And the pasuk in Yeshayahu continues, V'shafat b'tzedek dalim, that he judges with justice the poor, v'hochiach b'mishor li'an ve'eretz, and the meek of the earth as well. He judges them with equity. And the Gemara continues, Bar Kuziba molach tartin shenin upalga. Bar Kuziba, he was king. He ruled for 2.5 years. Amar lehu l'Rabbanan, and he said to the Rabbanan, Ano Mashiach, I am Mashiach. And Rashi explains, Rava Amar, Rava says, Mai veherichu, what does it mean when the pasuk uses the word veherichu? It means demorach v'doin, he's able to smell and judge. What that means is shemei riach ba'adam v'shofet, he can smell a person and judge, v'yodea mihachayev, and know who is the one that's liable. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, the same pasuk that was quoted by the Gemara, v'lo l'mari einav yishbot, v'lo l'mishma oznav yochiach, v'afilu hachi, and nevertheless, even though it's not to his eyes, even though he's not using his ears, v'shafat b'tzedek dalim, still he's able to judge with justice the poor, kagon al yedei haracha, for example, through smelling. And then the Gemara said, Bar Kuziba, the Mesaras Hashas changes this to Achar Malchei Hordus. He was after the rulership of Hordus. Bar Kuziba is referring to Bar Kochba. And the Gemara continues, after Bar Kuziba said that I am Mashiach, Amru lei, so they said to him, but Mashiach ksiv, by Mashiach it's written, the Morach v'adoin, that he's able to smell and judge. Nechsi anon, so let us see, Morach v'doin, if this person is able to smell and judge. Kevan dechazyu, de lo Morach v'doin, since they saw that he was not able to smell and judge, so kataluhu, so they killed him. And the Gemara continues, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. By Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah also, there are 6 blessings by them as well, D'chsib behu, because it's written by them, Asher ein bohem kol mu'um, they have no blemish, V'tovei mara, they look good, Umaskilam b'chol chachma, they have all kinds of wisdom, V'yodei das, they have knowledge, Umavinei mada, they have understanding, V'asher koach behem lamod beheichel hamelech, and they're able to stand in the palace of the king, Ulalamdam sefer v'loshen kastim, and to learn sefer, to learn from the books, and to learn the language of the kastim. And the Gemara says, Maya sherein bohem kalmum. What does it mean that they had no blemish? Amar Rabbi Chama says, Afilu kirivda de kusilsa, even like the scratch from bloodletting, lo have behu, they didn't have that. And Mai vasher koach behem lamud behechal hamelech. What does it mean that they had the strength to stand in the palace of the king? Amar Rabbi Chama, Rabbi Chanina says, Melamed shayu onsen es atzmon min haschok. It means that they were able to force themselves and restrain themselves from laughter, umin hasichen, from conversation, umin hashenan, from sleeping, they were able to hold back when they had to use the bathroom because of the fear of the kingdom. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk says in Sefer Daniel, Vayiyu bohem mibnei Yehuda, from the Bnei Yehuda was among them Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, v'Azariah. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the Gemara says, Amar Rebbe Elazar says, Kulan mibnei Yehuda heim. They were really all from the tribe of Yehuda. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmeni Amar, but Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmeni says, Daniel mibnei Yehuda. Daniel was from Yehuda, but Hananiah, Mishael, v'Azariah, Mishar Shvatim. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, they were from other Shvatim. And the Gemara continues, the pasuk in Yeshayahu says, "Umibonecha asher yetzu mimcha," and from the descendants that come from you, asher toled, which you give birth to, yikachu, they will be taken, v'hayu sarisim beheichal melech Bavel, and they will be officers in the palace of the king of Bavel. And Rashi explains, "Mibonecha asher yetzu mimeyecha bechizkiyo melech Yehuda ksiv." This is written by Chizkiyo, who was the king of Yehuda. And so the Gemara continues and asks, "My sarisim." What does the pasuk mean when it says they were sarisim? And the Gemara has a machlokes amoroim. Rav Amar Rav says sarisim mamish. They were actually sarisim, which means they were castrated. For Rabbi Chanina Amar, Rabbi Chanina says shenistarsa avodah zara b'yameim. It means that during their times the avodah zara was nistarsa. The avodah zara, the desire for avodah zara, was eradicated. And the Gemara says b'shalom alaman da'amar shenistarsa avodah zara b'yameim. I understand according to the one who says that avodah zara was eradicated. Hainu dichsiv. That's what it's written in the pasuk. Again, this is the pasuk in Sefer Daniel v'chavalo isi bahon, that there was no wound on them at all. Elulaman damar sarisim mamish, but according to the one who says that they were actually sarisim, they were actually castrated. So my v'chavalo isi bahon, what does it mean that there was no wound upon them? They did have a wound because they were sarisim. And the Gemara says, no, that pasuk was just chavla denura. That pasuk was just talking about a wound because of the fire, when Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah were thrown into the fire. But the Gemara continues, vaksib, but it's already written in the pasuk, v'reach nur lo adas bahon, lo chavla v'lo reich. It already says that they didn't have any damage from the fire and any damage from the odor of the fire. But the Gemara continues, how can you say it's only referring to the harm from the fire? But it already said, vaksiv, it was already written, v'reach nur lo adas bahon. It says that there was no odor from the fire on them. And so the Gemara says, lo chavla v'lo reich. It's two different things. It means there was no harm, there was no wound from the fire, and it means also the odor from the fire did not damage them. And the Gemara continues, I understand according to the one who says that the avodah zara was eradicated in their days. Hainu dichsiv, that's what it means when it's written in the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Ko amar Hashem la sarisim asher yishmru es shabsosai. Hashem says to the sarisim who watch my Shabbos. So it's not something that's bad, it's not a genai, it's not degrading to them, because we're talking about the fact that there was no avodah zara. Elalamando amar sarisim mamish, but according to the one who says that sarisim means that they were actually castrated, mishtoi kra, begenusa de tzadike, with the pasuk deal with the degradation of tzadikim. And the Gemara says to that, havaha have behu, according to the one who says that they were sarisa mamish, but also, we would also say nistarsa avodah zara b'yameim, both are true according to that manda amar. And the Gemara continues, B'shlam damar sarisa mamish. Now I understand according to the one who says they were actually castrated. Hainu dichsiv, that's what it's written in the pasuk. The pasuk goes on to say in Yeshayahu, B'veisi v'chomosai yod v'shem tov mibanim umibanos. I'm going to give you in my house, I'm going to give you a name greater than sons and daughters. It sounds like they couldn't have children of their own. But according to the one who says this is a reference to the fact that there's no more avodah zara, so my tov mibanim umibanos, what is the pasuk talking about? Better than sons and daughters. And the Gemara says, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, Mibonim shahayu lahem kvar v'mesu. They had children earlier before they were castrated, and those children died. That's what the pasuk is referring to. And the Gemara continues, My shem olam eten lo asher lo yikares. What does it mean? I'm going to give them a name forever that won't be cut off. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rabbi Tanchum, Rabbi Tanchum says, Dorish bar kapora b'tzipore. Bar kapora darshan and tzipore. Zeh sefer Daniel. This refers to sefer Daniel. That's the shem olam eten lo shenikra al shmo, because it was called by his name. And Rashi explains, Sarisim mamish, again, they were actually Sarisim, they were castrated. Shesirsu l'chanani mishol v'azariah. It means Chanani, Mishol, and Azariah were actually castrated. Shekein darkon shal malachim. That was actually the way of kings. L'saris as adam kedei shelo yisa isha. They would castrate a person so he wouldn't marry a woman. V'hei panoi la'avodas hamelech, so he'd be completely free to serve the king. V'les le'hadach achamim da'amri le'el sha'alu l'eretz Yisrael v'nasu nashim v'holidu banu muvanos. According to this approach, this would not hold of what we said earlier. This approach does not agree with what we said earlier, that they went up to Eretz Yisrael, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, went up to Eretz Yisrael and married women and had children. Rabbi Hananya says, Lo sirsum, they weren't castrated. Allahachi kari lu sarisim, they're called sarisim, shenistarsa avodah zara b'yameim, because the avodah zara was emasculated during their times, it was eradicated. Shebiyameim noda lachol, she'ein mamish ba'avodah zara. It was during their times that everyone understood there was no substance to avodah zara. U'poranus shayanavi misnabi l'chizkiyo, sheyugo l'me'artzam v'yolichem beheichol melech Bavel. And the punishment, the Navi here was prophesizing to Chizkiyo that they would be exiled from their land and they would be taken by the king of Bavel. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani damar Chananya Mishal Mishal v'Azariah mishar shvatim hayu. Rashi points out, according to Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, that says that Hanani, Mishal, and Azariah, they didn't come from Yehuda, they came from other shvatim. So mukim haikra b'Daniel lechud. Then you'll just say that this pasuk is talking only about Daniel and not talking about Hananiah, Mishal, v'Azariah. And Rashi continues and explains, Etein lo, I will give him again a shem olam, a name forever. Lahem lo nema. Rashi points out, it doesn't say I'm going to give them, elo lo, just to him in singular. La'echad mehem, to one of them. V'hainu Sefer Daniel shenikra al shemo. This refers to Sefer Daniel, which is called by his name. And Rashi continues, V'hashta, now the Gemara Kaparich is going to ask a different question. Pircha ba'pei nafshe. It's about to ask an independent question. Agav da'asi biyado Sefer Daniel. Once we're discussing Sefer Daniel. And the Gemara continues, Michti, let us see, Kol mili de Ezra, everything in Sefer Ezra, Nechemya ben Chakalya amrinu. Nechemya ben Chakalya, he's the one that said it. When Nechemya ben Chakalya, so when it comes to Nechemya, my time alo ikri Sifra al Shemei, why isn't the Sefer called by his name? Why is it called by Ezra's name? And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says, it's because Nechemya took credit for himself. Shenemar, because it says in the pasuk in Nechemya, Zachra li Elokai letova, remember me for good. But the Gemara says, is that really a criticism? David Nami Meimar Amar. David said a similar thing. David HaMelech said, it's in Sefer Tehillim, Zachreni Hashem biritzona amecha pakdeini bishuasach. It says, Hashem, you should remember me. And the Gemara says, David rachmehu dekabay. Over there, David, he was asking for mercy. It wasn't the same as the statement of Nechemya to remember for good, taking credit. And the Gemara continues with another answer to why it is that Nechemya doesn't have a sefer by his name. Rav Yosef Amar, Rav Yosef says, Siper bignusan shal rishonim. The reason why the sefer is not called by his name is because he spoke in the degradation. He spoke negatively about the earlier ones. Shenemar, as it says, V'apachos harishonim asher hayu lefanai, those leaders that were before me, hechbidu alaham, they laid heavy burdens upon the people. Vayichu mehem belechem v'yayin achar kesef shkolim arboim, and they took bread and wine. They took beyond 40 shkolim. V'yafal Daniel shegadol mimenu, and even with regards to Daniel, who was greater than him, Siper, he also spoke in that fashion. And the Gemara says, Umenolan de gadol mimenu, and from where do we know that Daniel was greater than Nechemya? Dechsiv, because it's written in the pasuk, V'ra'isi ani Daniel avadi, I Daniel alone, I saw esamara, I saw the vision. V'hanoshim asher hayu imi, and the men that were with me lo ro esamara, they didn't see the vision. Avol charad gedola nafla aleim vayivruchu be'echave, but a great trembling fell upon them, and they fled and they hid. And the Gemara says, "V'anoshim asher hayu imi lo roes hamara." It says the people who were with me, they didn't see the vision. Uman and inhu anoshim. Who are these men? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah v'yiteimer Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, and some say Rabbi Chia bar Abba says, "Zechagai, Zechariah, Malachi." That refers to Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And Rashi explains, Rav Yosef Amar Rav Yosef says, "Lava hachi yanish." Nechemya wasn't punished because he took credit for himself. To David Nami Amar Ki Agavna, because like we said, David himself said a similar language. El lekach and nenash. The reason why he was punished as Siper b'gnusan shal rishonim, because he spoke negatively about the earlier ones. And the Gemara said, "Mai ninhu shayu imo." Who were these people with him? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. It was Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. V'kevan sheim lo ro v'hu ra. Now, if they weren't able to see the vision and he was able to see it, al magadol mehem havi. See that he was greater than them. Daniel was greater than Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. Umida eshkechon Daniel have a choshev tvei Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi to have a nevi. And if Daniel was greater than Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, who were neviim, shma minot the God will have him in Nechemya ben Chakalya. He certainly was greater than Nechemya. To lo have a navi who wasn't a prophet. Ve'afilu hachi sipur olav, and nevertheless he spoke against him in a negative fashion. To lo afke michlal ganus harishonim, when he was saying negative about the earlier ones, he didn't exclude him. And Rashi continues, Daniel haya miboy hagolem acheresh va'amazgir. Daniel was one of the ones who came from the exile with the cheresh and mazgir. When Nechemya have a me'ole hagolem, Nechemya was one of the people who came up from the exile. Zman meruba la'achar mikan. That was a much later time than that. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tzadi Dalid Amud Aleph.